Some new information on the illegal immigrant charged with the murder of a California woman. He is due in court today. Police say Francisco Sanchez shot and killed Kate Steinle earlier this month as she walked along a San Francisco pier with her father. The victim's father testifying on Capitol Hill to push for tougher laws keeping illegal immigrant criminals off the streets. Sanchez had 7 felonies and had been deported back to Mexico 5 times. One politician in San Francisco introducing legislation to change the city's sanctuary law, making it mandatory for city employees and feds to work together to enforce immigration laws. Criminal defense attorney Ashley Merchant joins us from Atlanta. Also, criminal defense attorney Brian Claypool joins us from Los Angeles to talk about all of this. Ashley, it seems so simple that cities would be required to, enforce and defend effectively federal laws. But this sanctuary city thing makes San Francisco and some other cities one of the aberrations. Is that likely to change, do you think, as a result of this case?
I do. I think it's definitely going to change, whether or not there's actual new legislation that's enacted or there's just local policies that are changed. I do think something is going to happen in this case because this is such an extreme example. I mean, we've got this person who was deported 5 times. His actual being here in this country in and of itself is illegal. It's actually a federal crime to be here after you've been ordered deported. So the fact that he was released on bond and was released from custody is amazing to me. And I think that these counties, San Francisco, these different cities are going to have to take a real close look at their policies because just releasing folks like this and something like this happening is going to result in a change in the law.
One of the things, Brian, that tells me that something's really rotten here is just all of the finger pointing that's going on. The mayor is pointing fingers at the sheriff's pointing fingers at the feds. Nobody wants to take responsibility for the death of this young woman.
Hey, John, this is completely inexcusable. I am flat out outraged by how this has been handled. To begin with, let's talk about the law. This local sanctuary law is in conflict with the federal law, the federal immigration and custom law. Therefore, this local law should be shot down under what's called the supremacy clause. Whenever a local or state law is in conflict with a federal law, the federal law controls. So we need these laws repudiated immediately. That's the first thing. The second thing is there was a directive issued by the sheriff in March of this year, specifically telling his deputies to not cooperate with Department of Immigration. To me, that indicates there's a personal feud between the Sheriff's Department and the federal government, and that is intolerable. They are in effect defying a request by immigration to have a phone call made to them to pick up Sanchez. And in my opinion, that's a constitutional violation, and this young lady's family should go after this sheriff's department for a wrongful death case.
Let's talk about that, Ashley. I mean, my hat is off and my heart is broken, frankly, by her parents. They are so strong and so, I don't know, resolute in the face of this terrible tragedy. I mean, they just buried their daughter 3 weeks ago, and yet they are still, you don't hear hatred in their voice, you hear resolve. So do they have a case? Can they go after the city of San Francisco that let this guy out?
It seems like they could at least pursue it because there's a couple things you have to have. It's got to be foreseeable. So this guy had a very violent record. He had a history. He'd been deported 5 different times. So it is foreseeable that he would get out and commit another crime. And then being that it was foreseeable, was there some policy or some practice on behalf of the sheriff's department that led to this death? Well, yes, we've got that. We've got a practice or policy where the sheriff was actually having a directive saying, don't cooperate with the federal authorities. So if the sheriff hadn't had that, then this tragedy could have been avoided.
Ashley Merchant, Brian Claypool, we have to say goodbye. Thank you both.